Welcome to the in-depth series of Drishti IAS. My name is Pooja Dwivedi. December 6th is being observed as the Mahaparinirvan Diwas, as today Dr.BR Ambedkar got rid of the cycle of death and birth. We are going to talk about this tall personality today, the architect of the Indian Constitution, the one who led relentlessly the fight against untouchability, and to some extent, he did succeed. His contribution can never be denied by even the staunchest of his critics. We are going to talk about him in detail, specifically from the perspective of GS mains paper first, as well as from the GS mains paper second perspective, personality-centric. This particular segment will be divided into two segments. Of course, the personality centricism, and the second one is a very good critique he was of Marxism. There were certain similarities between Buddhism and Marxism that will be counted. In addition to what all we are going to talk over here, Buddhism versus Marxism. Many people say that he was totally against religion, but it wasn't so. He was against the other religions which were not glorifying what he wanted the religions to do. And importance of religion will also be talked about. The criticism of Christianity and Buddhism and communism. We are going to talk about that. A question will be attached from the perspective of means, but the pre-question will be attached from the perspective of your prelims, of course, and that will be attached in the comment segment. You are going to be by one of my favorite students if you are going to answer that, okay? And I'll take your names. So let us begin with Dr.BR Ambedkar's personality. He was born on 14 April 1891 in, as considered earlier, the lowest of the lowest families of caste, we can say, Mahar family. So his tryst with continuous, degradation is not something that, we need to talk about over here. But from here only, he understood how important it was to get rid of untouchability. He was in Mao cantonment, where his father served, okay? And he was a political leader, a philosopher, writer, economist, scholar and social reformer as well. He fought to eradicate untouchability and other social inequality in India. So let's first of all look at his education background, because coming from a Mahar family, he was provided such an opportunity, and it wasn't that he was provided opportunity like something which flew into his lap, or it was just given to him. He fought for it, and it can be said that he has an illustrious background. So he did his elementary education in Satara, Maharashtra, when his family moved to Maharashtra in 1902. Matriculation from Elphinstone High School, Bombay, Persian, and Inter 1909, Elphinstone College again. Now, after some period of time, he did MA. He majored in economics with sociology, history, philosophy, anthropology, and politics. So, myriad interests. He did his PhD in 1917 from Columbia University and he also did his MSc in 1921 from London School of Economics, and he wrote the thesis, Provincial Decentralization of Imperial Finance in British India. This could be asked in your prelims examination, pay attention. He did barrister at law from Gray's in London. And in 1922-23, he spent some time reading economics in the University of Bonn in Germany. Then he did his DSc November 1923 from London School of Economics, and there only he wrote The Problem of the Rupee, its origin and its solution, prelims fact. And based on this only, Hilton Young Commission, birthed, of course, the RBI. He did his LLD, and that was from Columbia University, for his achievements, leadership, and altering the Constitution of India. Remember this fact. And D.Lit from Osmania University, Hyderabad, for his achievement, leadership, and writing the Constitution of India. So let us pay attention to a program that Drishti is providing you, Elevate 2023 Cohort 2nd. And this will be a mentorship program available in online and offline mode both. It will start from 12th of December, okay? So it will be an integrated program. You can call on this number or visit the website. Moving ahead now, let's talk about the other important achievements. Of course, he is the main architect of the Indian Constitution as chair of the drafting committee of the Constitution. He had a lot of knowledge and expertise in the different constitutions of around the world, and that is why he was chosen to be the chairman of the drafting committee of the Constitution of India. Specifically, he had a lot of devotion towards fundamental rights, strong central government, and protection of minorities. Puram's fact, he was in favor of a strong central government, but he was against majoritarian syndrome, that where majorities try to suppress the minorities. He was against that. Moving ahead, now let's talk about the achievements in the sense of democracy. He had complete faith in democracy. He supported the parliamentary form of democracy, and not only in polity. He said that let's have democracy as a way of life, not only in political structure, but also social and economical as well, because without these two, political democracy is of no use. He also took lead in social reforms to remove untouchability. We will talk about this in detail in other achievements as well. Abolition of the caste system in totality, he was in favor of that. And he believed that economic and political issues must be resolved only after achieving the goal of social justice. Also, social reforms for him consisted of family reforms and religious reform. That means for him, it started within the family, that means in the family structure, and then from within the religion as well. Moving ahead now, let's talk about the achievements as in the fact sheet. In 1923, he established the Bahishkrit Hitakarni Sabha, or the Outcast Welfare Association, with the aim to help the untouchables or the downtrodden. In 1930, he launched the Temple Entry movement in Kalaram Temple, Nashik. He attended all the three roundtable conferences in London, and when Mahatma Gandhi was against the communal award, which was awarded by Ramsay MacDonald, he wasn't happy with that. So Pune Pact was signed between him and Dr.BR Ambedkar, and it created a more and more focus towards the downtrodden. So that was also one of the achievements, the Pune Pact. In 1936, he established the Independent Labour Party. On October 14, 1956, he embraced Buddhism, and he completed his last writing, Buddha and his Dharma. He achieved Mahaparinirvan on December 6, 1956. Now let's go on and talk about the institutions which were set up considering his vision. As I told you, considering the paper that he wrote, The Problem of the Rupee, Its Origin and Its Solution, the Hilton Young Commission, considering this, birthed the Reserve Bank of India. He was a Labour member in Viceroy's Executive Council from 1942 to 1946, in which he helped in achieving many other institutional reforms. Also, the Central Water Commission in the form of the Central Waterways, Irrigation and Navigation Commission, Central Technical Power Board, all these were formed on his thesis and reports and theories. The Interstate Water Dispute Act 1956 and River Boards Act 1956 emanate from his vision, and he was also a staunch feminist. He spoke for women's rights. We can see that from the Hindu Code Bill. Moving ahead now, let's talk about the other important what his legacy is. In 1990, Dr.BR Ambedkar was bestowed with Bharat Ratna. That was, of course, posthumously. From 14th April 1990 to 14th April 1991, this particular period was celebrated as Year of Social Justice, respecting, and it was dedicated to his vision. March 24, 1992, Dr. Ambedkar Foundation was formed by the Government of India. It comes under Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. It was registered as a society in order to move ahead with the welfare measures and, of course, furthering the ideology of Dr.BR Ambedkar. Now, let's talk about a few important works of Dr.BR Ambedkar. Mook Nayak, which was a weekly. Janata was also a weekly. Annihilation of Caste, The Untouchables, Buddha or Karl Marx, these are all his works. Moving ahead. Now, if we talk about was he completely against religion, this is something that is totally wrong. He was a deeply spiritual person and conscious of the importance of religion. He did not deny that religion is not important in people's life. But he had views that Buddhism is superior to other religions. As according to him, he infused so much religion, I can say Buddhism, into political structure that he considered the driving force of India's constitution. Also says that Buddha was a Democrat. As to dictatorship, the Buddha would have none of it. He was born a Democrat and he died a Democrat. Okay. Moving ahead now, if we talk about Buddhism versus Marxism. So, Marxism is basically a social, economic and political ideology which says that capitalism has an ill effect on the productivity of the labor, and finally says that workers' revolution or the revolution of the proletariat should be there to overturn and throw away capitalism. So basically it is the rule of the labor class according to Karl Marx. So on Karl Marx only we have this ideology, Marxism. So Buddha's path, he considered, Dr.BR Ambedkar considered Buddha's path to be superior to the popular religion-rejecting philosophy, Marxism. So he considered that Marxism was basically anti-religion. There were certain similarities also with respect to Marxism and Buddhism. The similarities were that the function of religion is to, first of all, he drives a similarity between religion and Marxism. Okay, religion is of course here Buddhism. So the function of religion is to reconstruct the world, to make the world happy and not to explain its origin or its end. So he was not interested in knowing the origin or end of the world, but to make the world a better place. That private ownership of property brings power to one class and sorrow to another. That it is necessary for the good of the society that this sorrow be removed by removing its cause, and all human beings are equal. Now here comes what he thought Buddhism should be. Here comes Marxism. Let's see what is similar between Marxism and Buddhism according to him. He said, Dr. Ambedkar said, that all that is left is a residue of fire. It is small but still very important. The function of philosophy is to reconstruct the world. Marxism wants to reconstruct the world and not to waste its time explaining the origin of the world. That private ownership of property brings power to one class, that is the capitalist class, and sorrow to another through exploitation, that is the labor or the proletariat. And it is necessary for the good of the society that the sorrow be removed by abolition of private property, and hence the birth of communism. Communism should be there according to Marxism. So this is what the parallels were drawn as similarities. There were certain differences that he was very aware of. The differences were that although both Marxism and religion or Buddhism, they want to have the same end, but the means were different. See, Buddhism's commitment to abolishment of private property, that is same like Marxism has. It is the Buddhism philosophy is that it goes to such a high extent that the bhikkhus should give up all worldly goods, and it is very difficult for them to hoard goods, which is not the case with Russians. Okay, so rules for bhikkhus owning property or possessions are far more rigorous than are to be found in communism in Russia. So here there is the difference between Marxism and Buddhism. And the means which were adopted by Buddha were to convert a man by changing his moral disposition to follow the path voluntarily. But the means adopted by communists are equally clear, short and swift, but they are violent in nature. They are violence and dictatorship of the proletariat, whereas in Buddhism there is no such thing. Moving ahead, now if we talk about him as a critique of Marxism. See, he criticizes, Dr.BR Ambedkar criticizes Marxism on the thing that what is more important is what will replace the state. Karl Marx says again and again that throw away the state. You do not need the state. The state needs you. You should rule. You are the labor who are giving them all the money. I mean, through your productivity. But Marxism does not answer the question, once the state is thrown away, who will rule? If there is going to be anarchy, it will be of no use because anarchy is not good. So, while communists claim that the state will eventually wither away, they do not answer that what will come after it. Communists themselves admit that their theory of the state as a permanent dictatorship is the weakness in their political philosophy. And they take shelter where? They take shelter under the plea that the state will ultimately wither away. They do not explain what will come after that. So this is the criticism of Marxism. For Dr. Ambedkar, religion as in Buddhism was very important. He says that once the state withers away, religion should only replace it. But to the communist, religion is an anathema. And their hatred to religion is so deep-seated that they will not even discriminate between religions. That was not liked by Dr. Ambedkar. Now, he was a critique of Christianity as well, Dr.BR Ambedkar, saying that Christianity basically glorifies poverty and suffering in this world and says that you will be more satisfied when you die. Whereas Buddhism says that being happy is the world is the first and foremost thing, and earn wealth through lawful means. We do not need to worry about what happens after death. Okay. Now, Buddhism and communism. What is communism? Communism is the phenomenon in which the sources of production belong to the community. So, he says, Dr. Ambedkar says that Buddhism or Buddha established communism so far as the sun was concerned without dictatorship. Here, what Marxism says, that dictatorship of the proletariat will be there. So, property will belong collectively to the proletariat, but the proletariat will rule at the same time. But the case is not with Buddhism. It may be that it was communism on a very small scale, because Buddhism talks only about the belongingness of the property for the community, but not the dictatorship of that particular community. Again, because that will be, in contrary to the theory that Buddhism had, that everybody is equal. The Buddha's method was to change the mind of the man, to alter his disposition, so that whatever man does, he does it voluntarily without the use of force or compulsion. Okay. Now, let's talk about a previous year question. On the similar lines, you can also have another question. UPSC 2015's question it is, Mahatma Gandhi and Dr.BR Ambedkar, despite having divergent approaches and strategies, had a common goal of amelioration of the downtrodden. Elucidate. Now, a question for mains is there. Communist dictatorship in Russia has wonderful achievements to its credit. Equality will be of no value without fraternity or liberty. Comment in 250 words. So, I will attach one question for you to answer, and those who answer it correctly, they will be my favorite students. Alright, so let me take the names of those who have answered my last question of in-depth correctly. The question was, consider the following: Park Bay, Gulf of Mannar, Park Street. You had to arrange this in the correct order. The correct answer is C. Many of you have answered it correctly. Puneet, Unstoppable, Apeksha, Neha, Sanjo, Koyal, Surya Pratap, Daksha, Rupal, Rupa, Simran, Archana, Ketki, Nishant. You all have answered it correctly. Apart from that, MS Aspirant has answered it correctly. Aarti has answered it correctly. Tushar. Then Venkat Jogi has answered it correctly. Riya Thakur, Sanjogita has answered it correctly. Sagar has answered it correctly. Okay. Then Baliram has answered it correctly. Richa, Faizan, Mahendra, Pallavi, Krishna, and also Rupa. Rupa has answered twice. Then Srinivas, Maruti, Swastika, and Simran, Anuj, Anita, Bhargavi, Sagarika, Mayank. So, thank you so much for answering my previous question. I will attach another question. Do answer it, okay? Thank you so much for watching and stay updated.